Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, but if you're unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. We do record the show as we are doing today, and you'll be able to watch it later at your convenience. And I will show you at the end of today's show where you can access all of our show recordings. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to anyone to watch. So please do share anywhere you like with anyone you think might be interested in watching any of the shows we have on NCompass Live. For those of you who might not be from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries in Nebraska. So we are similar to your whatever state library. So we provide training and consulting and databases and grants to all types of libraries in the state. So you will find shows on NCompass Live for all types of libraries. Public, academic, K-12, corrections, museums, historical societies, really anything to do even vaguely with libraries. Very broad. We have Nebraska Library Commission staff that sometimes come on and do presentations for us about programs and resources and things we offer through the commission, but we also bring in guest speakers sometimes from across Nebraska and across the country. And then we have a mixture of that here today. Today we are talking about the 2026 One Book, One Nebraska, the Antidote. And we have Tessa Timperley, who's our communications coordinator here at the Library Commission staff. Becky Faber is here with us from the Nebraska Center for the Book, and Christine Walsh remotely. Good morning, Christine.
Good morning.
Also from the Center for the Book, and Broc Anderson from the Nebraska State Historical Society. So I'm just going to hand it over to you, Tessa, and you all to start off and tell us about how the new book for this year and everything we can do to celebrate it.
Yeah, this year's selection is The Antidote by Karen Russell. It's a novel, and we're going to talk about the book this morning. We're going to talk about the programming involved with One Book, One Nebraska, resources we have available for your library, and just the One Book, One Nebraska program and Center for the Book in general, and give a little overview about those programs and what is involved in nominating a book and how The Antidote became the 2026 One Book, One Nebraska. First, we are going to pivot over to Christine Walsh from Kearney Public Library, and she is also the former president of Nebraska Center for the Book, but she was able to get Karen Russell out to her library last year. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of programming you were able to have at the library, and Broc was involved in that as well. So I'm gonna let you tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Tessa. Yes, we were very excited to host Karen at our One Book Kearney, or One Author Kearney event in October. She was wonderful, energetic, happy to answer questions and interact with the readers and writers in the community. So it was a real treat to have her in town. We started the day by her leading a writing workshop, and this is just a treat for aspiring writers or just people who want to spend a little more time with a great author and hear about what their writing process is. And so we had about 20 people attend that. That was a wonderful afternoon. And then in the evening, we hosted a conversation with Broc Anderson and Karen at the World Theater, and we had about 200 people attend. Generally, the audience is curious readers, our book club members. There are about 70 that that use the book club bags from the Kearney Public Library, so we always reach out to all of them. People who are interested in historical fiction, even though this is magical realism, which made it a really different kind of genre to interact with, but it was fun. So that evening, the Q&A afterwards with Karen, where the audience gets to ask questions, those burning questions that as you read the book, it's like, oh, I wish I could ask the author. People got an opportunity to answer or ask those questions, and she answered every one of them. And then, of course, stayed afterwards and signed every book until the line was gone, which is always a treat and greatly appreciated by everybody that interacts with the authors. Any number of people who had a hard time with the book the first time around, after listening to the conversation and then asking questions, said, oh, now I understand better. I'm going to dive into this and read it again. So lots of enthusiasm, and people who hadn't read it at all are like, okay, now we need to get on board and read it. We always, the library has its own book club, and we always get a book bag for whatever the new title is for One Book, One Nebraska, and we've been doing that for years. And we discuss it, so that helps generate buzz locally, which is always fun. And then the Library Commission always has a book bag for the one book, at least one, sometimes two, that libraries can borrow. And I would just encourage libraries to do that, because it's a great way to get lots of readers engaged with the one book selection for each year. And that is also helped by a grant, I believe, from Humanities Nebraska that helps promote programs and speakers. And just that partnership is wonderful and helps, I think, spread the interest and just the wonderful programming that goes with One Book, One Nebraska.
Christy, I have a question. When you guys planned all this, how did you, so it hadn't been announced yet that the Antidote would be the One Book, One Nebraska for next year when you planned all this, this programming with Karen Russell. How did you come to schedule her and pick this book to do programming around before it had been announced?
ESP. No, I'm teasing. It just was one of those lucky circumstances. We always host a nationally noted author here, sponsored by a library foundation, and we were having schedule conflicts with the other people that we had invited. And then Broc, who is on our library foundation, has this great connection with Karen, and so he said, well, let me reach out and see if she'd be willing to come. And then all the other pieces started to fall into place, which was just fabulous. And so then we started, once Broc had an initial conversation with her, then we started the conversation with her publisher, which is how we got it scheduled. A lot of authors, you either need to go through their publisher or through like an author kind of clearinghouse, or Authors Unbound is another organization that does that. It helps with a lot of the logistics, so I don't have to make plane reservations and coordinate their schedules and all those sorts of things. So that helps a ton. Yeah. But Broc was just an essential liaison to making all of this come together, and then his willingness to be in conversation with Karen, which is a lovely way to have a program as opposed to just having someone come up and talk. I don't know, it makes the audience feel closer and more connected, I think, with the authors. Does that make sense, Broc? Does that help? Does that answer your question, Tessa?
Yeah, I was just curious I thought it was so interesting that you had this programming at Kearney Public Library, just before the One Book, One Nebraska came out, and you were so ahead of the game.
Well, and it was hard to not say it was on the final list. So, thank you, Broc. But the reading list, for the One Book, One Nebraska committee, we started in June, Becky? Yes. And so when it was on the list, I got really excited because I already knew Karen was coming, but I had to mostly keep my mouth shut. That's hard, but exciting.
Yeah. Well, we can talk a little bit about the One Book, One program just in general. And I'm going to let Becky talk a little bit about that, because she is both on our Nebraska Center for the Book board, but she also heads the One Book, One Nebraska committee.
And it is a fun project. On the Center for the Book website is a nomination form. And
We have more information about that at the end for
Okay.
sure. I'm not sure how to get out of this.
We just, escape rule.
Oh,
There we go. Yes.
so the nominations come from anyone who chooses to nominate a book that they think would make a great statewide read. We do have some criteria, and so either the author must have lived in Nebraska at some time, or the setting in Nebraska, as with the Antidote, or a Nebraska theme. And so with our nomination form, it takes just a few minutes to fill in, and it is open all year long, and it closes for the upcoming year on May 31st. And then in June, we start through the process of seeing the list of books that have been nominated, making sure that the books fit the criteria. And then the committee begins reading. And we do multiple rounds of reading to try and find the best book possible for our readers in the state of Nebraska. And when our selection committee has narrowed it down to a short list, then we have the entire board for the Center for the Book vote, and they are the ones who cast the final vote to choose the book that will be the One Book, One Nebraska. The most fun part of my job in this process is contacting the author and letting the author know that this book has been selected, and then of course swearing them to secrecy, because we want it to be a surprise, and we make that announcement at the celebration of the book in the fall.
Yeah, we've had a really great list of books in the 22 years
Yes.
that you've been running the program. And here's a just snapshot of them, but like Christy mentioned, the Nebraska Library Commission has book club kits for each one of these selections that libraries still check out and can reserve for their book club. So if you haven't,
And I was just looking up what we have
Yeah.
available for this. We have 70 copies. And I don't know if this includes, we just heard earlier this week, we ordered another 20
We just
copies.
ordered another 20. They just came out in paperback. So we were able to order more copies for our book clubs that they can check
I
out.
don't know if this 70
Yeah, I'm not
includes
sure
that
if
20 or not, if we've got another
70
20 coming, but we've got a lot. Plus, there's a large print copy. It's also available through the Talking Book and Braille service.
Mhm.
And we also put together book club kits. We purchased them and sent them to the 4 regional library systems as well.
Yes,
So each one of them has, I think we get 10.
they each have 10
copies.
in their kit.
So you can also get
Mhm.
book club kits from them as well.
And I know it is also available as ebook or audiobook on Nebraska Overdrive libraries. So
It's everywhere.
however you love to read, we tried to make a copy available in some format. But yeah, we have all of these books in our book club kit collection, and you don't have to start with the Antidote. You could start anywhere in here and just read your way through the One Book, One Nebraska collection. It's a really fun way to talk about a Nebraska theme or author or setting in your book club that maybe you wouldn't have investigated otherwise. So on to this year's book, which is The Antidote by Karen Russell. Like it's been mentioned before, this is historical fiction mixed with magical realism. It's set in a fictional town in Nebraska, and when I was reading it, I was pleasantly surprised by all the fun Nebraska towns and landmarks, and just little Easter eggs for a native Nebraskan that popped up while reading it, especially from an author that is not from Nebraska. So that was a really great thing to see. And I know that Broc had possibly a hand in helping Karen do some research into Nebraska's history in the Dust Bowl. Broc, do you want to talk a little bit about how you collaborated with Karen Russell to help her with this book?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a little biased. I think this is probably one of the best books I've ever read, but no, my relationship with Karen started back, I want to say in December of 22 or December of 21. And she was kind of at the very beginning of in the weeds of writing and researching and doing this work. So she had just like what I have she's just a researcher by heart. When she's wanting to write about something, she's going to turn every rock and leave no stone unturned in order to understand what it is that she's writing about. So if you go through kind of the end notes and the acknowledgments, I mean, she's got so many people listed as part of her journey, and I'm just very fortunate to be a part of that and helping her with that. So I will say, she had gone on and watched some of the brown bag lectures that the Kearney Public Library does, and found one of my lectures that I spoke about Northwest Nebraska and the Pine Ridge Reservation. So something in that presentation sparked interest in her, and she ended up cold calling me one day down at the Trails and Rails Museum, and then we started corresponding. And at one point I decided that, I'm finishing up my master's thesis. I think for her to understand what this Northwest and this panhandle part of Nebraska is like, and even then the native and non-native relationships that take place, I think that my thesis would help her greatly. And so I sent that on to her, and she got to read the behemoth of 250 pages of a monograph thesis in the late 20th century that I think she was very appreciative for. So, and since then we've stayed in contact all the time. So I'll send her pictures of my kids, and she'll send me pictures of her kids and how the holidays are going. And so, but even then, we've had so many different emails, phone calls, texts about topics that she really hits on here in the Antidote. So I'm very, very fortunate and very blessed to have gotten to know Karen the way that I have.
Yeah, I think it adds an authenticity to the book, just how in-depth into some of the history of Nebraska it goes into, while also being a fictional novel. I really liked that play when I was reading the novel. Can you, this can be anybody, Becky, Christy, Broc, talk a little bit about some of those topics you talked about, or you hinted at, Broc, that were mentioned in the book?
Yeah, so from many of my discussions with Karen, the one part that her and I had a lot of conversations about was Lost Bird, or Zingala Nuni, who was the Lakota infant that was picked up from the Wounded Knee Massacre site that she talks about in her book. And so, Karen was very careful about how she talked about Lost Bird in her book, because she didn't want to take away any of that history or her story away from the Lakota people, and rightfully so. But she does it in a way that's respectful and honors the story and makes sure that she's at least doing justice to the fact that this place of the unwed mother's home and all the experiences that these people have is this shared experience in this space. And Lost Bird's story is part of that. So, and to some extent, that was a lot of our conversations, being an Oglala myself, and having those conversations about how Lost Bird's life after Wounded Knee had come about, how Lost Bird's life had led her to certain parts of the world and the country for that matter. So I will say Karen's done a lot of research, and a lot of folks that she's reached out to, and one of those Pawnee historian and Pawnee the Pawnee Nation, James writing, I know is a big part of her research as well. So she's not one of those writers. I would say she's kind of like a Mari Sandoz in the sense that Mari's going to take notes about the various trees that she's driving by if she's ever going to write a certain aspect of her book in the future about what a tree looked like in McCook, Nebraska, or things of that nature. So she's very detailed in her research, and she wants to make sure that she gets it as historically accurate as possible with the story that she's trying to tell.
And we found in the discussion that people, some of those different topics really resonated with our readers, especially Native Nebraskans who had maybe had somebody in that home for unwed mothers or had experiences and stories to tell. So, you know, that just brings you deeper into the story, but also brought out that history connection, which is always exciting when you connect with a book that way and share those with other readers who are, you know, may not have those same experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
I will say, so I'm from Alliance originally, and I live in Kearney now. It was very, very odd to be reading about Gordon and Rushville, Nebraska in a book that I know had some of my sprinklings of my thesis in there. So I felt like Karen had really utilized some of the sources and materials that were provided to her from me, and many others. So
some people also felt it helpful to somewhat suspend their knowledge of Nebraska geography to make some of the relationships work. So familiar places, but maybe not where we know them to be on the map. But it all works. It's wonderful.
Yes, I mean, it is a fictional novel, but so there are a lot of places you have to suspend the reality for this book, but I also enjoyed all those little pieces of Nebraska that were a part of it.
I think it also does a wonderful job of pulling together other pieces of fiction and nonfiction. And with my teaching background, every time I read a book, I automatically go to, okay, now if I were going to teach this, how would I teach this? And I always teach in clusters. And so I was thinking of the clusters of books I would use to integrate with the Antidote. And the first thing, and this is not a book, this is Barbra Streisand's lyric, but the first thing I thought of when I started the book is a line from a song by Barbra Streisand and from the song The Way We Were. And the line is, what's too painful to remember, we simply choose to forget, which lays open the structure of what the Antidote embodies. And as I started reading and thinking about that part of Nebraska in the 1930s, I wondered if readers would find it helpful to read Timothy Egan's Dust Bowl Diary, or The Worst Hard Time by Egan, which is focused on exactly what happened in Nebraska historically. And then the novel that runs somewhat parallel to this is Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, because Russell talks about how people are leaving Nebraska because they can't make a living and they have to go somewhere. And California was a place where many Nebraskans fled during the Dust Bowl. In reading it, the parallel in some ways to The Wizard of Oz is there, particularly with the Scarecrow. And I think that merits some good discussion when readers are talking about this book. But it also fits in the literature of Nebraska with a novel by Dorothy Thomas called The Home Place, which is set near the Republican River. The novel was printed in 1966, and at that time Dorothy Thomas was a very prominent Nebraska writer, but it also handles these issues of hardship in family and how people survive together.
Yeah. We have a lot from the Nebraska Center for the Book and the Nebraska Library Commission to help people read and discuss this book. One of those things is we have a Facebook page dedicated to One Book, One Nebraska. We have, like we talked about, book club kits and a website that goes along with the One Book, One Nebraska programming. If you are having events or are interested in events around this book, please let us know about them or post them on the Facebook page or send them to the Nebraska Center for the Book email. We would love to hear what you're doing, if you've got a book club reading, if you've got discussions happening. There's the Facebook page. And I'm just going to pop over to the website where we talk a little about the book. We talk about Karen Russell and her work. We have a link to her personal author page. We also have a Get Involved page where you can find links to those regional library system book kits, the Nebraska Library Commission book kits, Overdrive Libraries, and the Talking Book and Braille service copy, if those are services you subscribe to. We've got our social media links that talk about One Book, One Nebraska. And one of, I think, a great oh wow, my mind just went blank. Tool we have around this book is we have questions specifically to this book to help you discuss it and the topics in your book group, and that you can print off a PDF version of that or just read them off the website. We do partner with Humanities Nebraska, and right now they have a speaker that talks about the Dust Bowl in Nebraska, and we have that linked. If that's something you would like to have as a program piece to go along with this book. We've got social media graphics and posters and bookmarks that you can get for your library and your book group to talk about the book or to promote it in your community. If that's a group if that's a book you're reading or have a book group happening. So we've provided some links for those things. And we ask that if you're reading the book for the One Book program or you've read it at all, that you submit a evaluation form just to let us know what you thought and about the program and the book to help us make the program even better in the future. The book club kits and the programming comes from a grant from Humanities Nebraska, which they give us every year to help promote this and buy books for the book club kit. And that has been a great resource. So thank you, Humanities Nebraska, for that grant. And then we talked a little bit about, those are the activities. The Nebraska Celebration of Books, or the NCompass Literary Festival, which we have in the fall. And we don't have a date for it just yet, but
I was gonna say, do we know how we picked a
we
date
don't.
yet?
We haven't picked a date yet. We make it around the Husker football bye week so that we don't have to compete with game day traffic or a football game. So they haven't
We don't know the schedule.
they
yet.
haven't come out with the schedule just yet.
We gotta get on that.
Yep. So once they do that, we'll pick a date. But it always happens in the fall, and it promotes the Nebraska Center for the Book Award winners. And there's always a One Book, One Nebraska presentation that happens at this event. And it's also where we announce the next year's book selection. So it's a really great book festival. Last year we had it here in Lincoln on campus at the Union. I'm not sure where it's going to be next year. It might be in Lincoln, it might be in Omaha. We haven't made that decision yet. But if you're in the area, we would love to have you come visit and hear about the One Book, One Nebraska program and get involved in some of those author panels. It's a really fun event. And like Becky talked about, we do have programming and the nomination form available for One Book, One Nebraska all year long. And every May 31st, it takes all the books that were nominated in that calendar year, and that's what the reading committee looks at for the next year's One Book, One selection. So just because you nominated a book last year and it wasn't selected, if you don't nominate it again, it won't be on the reading list for the next year. But there are several.
So you can submit again.
Yeah, you can submit every year.
And it only takes one nomination to be considered.
Yeah, so if you have a book in mind that you think would be an excellent One Book, One Nebraska read, please, it's free to submit. There's no fee or anything like that. We ask questions about the book and how it's connected to Nebraska. And we also would love for it to be a book that is available. It's in print. It has an ISBN number, and there are at least 5 copies circulating somewhere in Nebraska. So those are the things we ask for a nominated book. But we have this available year round that you can submit a book for the Nebraska book, or the One Book, One Nebraska.
Sometimes people hesitate to nominate a book because the author is either not living or doesn't still live in Nebraska. But there is tremendous potential for programming. And I go back to Once Upon a Town, where Bob Greene was the author, lives in Chicago. He did not come to Nebraska to do any programming for that book, but we had a year full of fabulous programming because we had Nebraskans who could speak to the content of the book. And so I would say don't hesitate if the author does not live here or is no longer living. There are still possibilities for programming that are available.
Oh, yeah, I mean, some of the books we've had, O Pioneers,
Mignon Eberhardt's
yeah,
book.
the Mystery of Huntington's End,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Yeah, Mystery of Huntington's End. Yeah, we've had poetry collections, fiction, nonfiction, any kind of book has been. I was just looking through the full list here. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had nonfiction books, fiction, poetry, short stories. So it can kind of go across the board.
Is this the first one we've had that was more fantasy-ish, like magical realism,
Yes.
specifically, of course?
I
But
believe so.
because we've had mysteries, we've had other
We've had
genres.
historical fiction that's,
Mhm.
yeah. This one's a little bit different than those in the way that it has that magical realism in it.
Yeah.
And we have been, over 22 years of doing this, we're almost evenly split between fiction and nonfiction. It's been, that's just been the evolution of the process. We never focus on looking for one genre over another. It's just happened that way.
And whatever gets submitted, whatever gets nominated, it's up to you all to do that. Yeah.
Because we cannot consider a book that has not been nominated. And sometimes someone will say to me, well, why haven't you ever chosen book X by author Y? And my response is that book was never nominated. We couldn't consider it.
Put in a nomination. And you were mentioning earlier, Tessa, that we have the book club kits for this, and I went and looked, and we do keep the book club kits for every single one, going back to the beginning. And I made sure, I just, I didn't want to say it because we created them, but even after that one book year is over, we still have the book club kits of them. So you can go, because you mentioned going back and starting reading any of the previous one. So you can go back and get kits, sets for your book club for any of these titles, discussion questions, more information about them. And most of them still have a lot of copies. We still have all of them, 50 copies at least of each one, it looks like here.
Yeah.
So you can request, if you want to set a 10 or something for your library.
Mm-hmm.
You can go back to any one of these.
And you do have to go through a library or a school to use our book club kit service. It's not for just
The general public.
the general
Yeah, it
public
goes through
to
the
check out
library.
through, but you can work with your public library, or if you're a school, work with your school librarian and they will check out a kit for you. And so that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a librarian to access the resources on the One Book, One Nebraska webpage. To get those discussion questions, to fill out a survey, to nominate a book. So that's for anyone to do.
And out of 22 selections, the Antidote is the only one that features girls basketball.
That's actually my favorite part of her book. I just love the detail that she talked about how the girls' legs were moving in unison, and how she described that basketball scene was amazing to me. I could just totally picture it.
Well, Broc, I grew up in Iowa, and I grew up where they played 6-girl half court. And so I found it very interesting too.
I can only imagine too, with the dust just flying around them and the coach. That was a fun part of the book to read.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have survived playing basketball in a cornfield with allergies.
All the
That
dust
might have-
flying around.
that might have taken me out, for sure. I would have been the girl who died of that. But, and there are so many strong female characters in this book that not just one, not just two, there's several. And that I appreciated that about this book as well. And they're all very different and full, well-rounded characters. So Karen is a really excellent writer. If you haven't had a chance to pick up this book, I would put it on your holds list on the library, because there is a holds list
Yes,
for it.
I believe the reason we purchased 20 more copies is because it's been so popular. Libraries have already put in their requests to reserve it at certain times throughout the year. And you can do it. You can say, we're actually discussing this in September.
Yeah.
So you would put in your reservation for that. But that's why we bought more, because they're already all out there.
Yeah, but we love to see a book that people are excited to read. Do we have about 20 minutes left. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, I didn't mention this at the beginning, I forgot. There's a question section in our GoToWebinar interface for anyone's on. Do you have any questions about the book, any questions about one book, any events or things you're planning at your library that you want to share about, that you're planning on hosting or doing anything, type into that question section. We do have one comment that's kind of a little aside because of what you mentioned, Becky. That somebody here says that Jennifer Sterling at the University of Iowa and their Iowa Women's Archives have designed a traveling exhibit about 6-on-6 basketball. So if you're interested in that, check out the University of Iowa Women in Sport in their archives.
That would be an interesting connection to have to go along with the Antidote.
Yeah.
Diving into women's sports and basketball in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So Broc mentioned his favorite thing. One of his favorite things about the book is the women's basketball scene. Christy, Becky, do you guys have any favorite things about the book? Without giving spoilers to anyone who hasn't read it.
I was very touched by the fact that she mentioned Harp's brother, Frank, who took his life after he came back from World War I. And that is, and an echo of the end of Cather's novel, One of Ours. The very last chapter talks about how many of the veterans who came back were not able to absorb what they had lived through, and that was not an uncommon occurrence. And so I was appreciative that she made that point, and she made it very respectfully.
Also have something here which is very cool, which I think you all need to connect with them. Someone says, my name is Dominic Dongilly. Does anyone know? Anyway, they are the historian and librarian at Homestead National Historical Park here, and they do distance learning programs on the Wizard of Oz, homesteading, Clara Colby, etc. And said they're happy to collaborate with any libraries looking to do programming. So Homestead National Historical Park, reach out to him. Also Black homesteaders in Nebraska, he's too. So go ahead and check it.
Chat with them.
Homestead National Historical Park.
Just send them my email.
Yes, I bet you Tessa's going to be reaching out to you.
Yes. Christy, do you have a favorite part of the book? I'm going to just go to my, it still has, this is inaccurate. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I should have updated this. My email is actually Tessa Timperley, tessa.timperley@nebraska.gov.
if you look on the web, if you go to the website, it's all correct.
Yes. You can email me through the website as well. But yeah, we would love to connect with you.
Yeah, and Davin just gave his email address here.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, Christy, sorry, I keep interrupting you. Oh, did Christy leave?
I think she might have. She's turned off her camera and she's got herself
Perfect
muted,
sense.
right? So she's not, yeah. She did it. We knew she had to take off.
That's
it wasn't
true.
the whole time, but yeah.
I'm just talking to myself now. Me personally, I hadn't made the connection until Becky mentioned it, but I think my new favorite thing is the connection to the Wizard of Oz, and all the doors that just opened for me thinking about this book in connection and parallel with the Wizard of Oz and all the other books that parallel this.
It's interesting because when you look at a lot of people doing their reviews of the book and talking about it and the news stories, and I thought it was weird that not a lot of people talk about that to start off with. It doesn't seem to be the most the thing that most people remember or want to talk about when they are doing their reviews and discussing it. It's interesting because it's obvious that there are relations, of course, to that, and you can find articles where Karen Russell talks about it. Yes, I was influenced by the original movie and everything. But when people read it, that's not the thing that's really. It's just interesting. It's just interesting. You'd think it would be, especially all the Disney, all of the wicked stuff coming out. You'd think people would be all over that. But it's interesting that that's what people get into more of the other parts of the book.
And I think that's one of my favorite things about the one book program is that if you don't get a chance to talk about books with other people and you haven't read the same book as someone else to be able to talk about what, Becky connected with it and my experience reading it, you might not get those little, insights. You're just stuck with what you thought as you read the book. So I love that One Book, One Nebraska encourages people to read the same book across the state in all different parts of our state and all different communities, and then have a chance to come together and talk about it and what each individual person got out of it and hear what someone else got completely different from you. That's the whole point of the program, and it's just my favorite part of it.
We have a librarian from here in Nebraska, Cecilia, saying we are currently reading it in Beaver City for the book club, and we will meet in February to discuss it. We have a lot of information in our genealogy room about families affected by the Republican River Valley flood, dust storms, and immigrants, and it's interesting to reference those while reading, so they are connecting to the things in their genealogy collection.
Yeah, that's a great way to read it, and to come up with new things to talk about as you're discussing it with your book group and how it really does connect to your community's past and history.
There may be people reading it who have their own ancestors who
Yeah.
they know the family story
Mhm.
about it. There's got to be people out there.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yes.
And I think Karen's mentioned that before too. And I know Tosca Lee, who was last year's author, she had that same experience. As people read her book, she had so many people reference their personal family stories and how they found connection to her book and the characters in their community and their person. So she said that was a great part of traveling across the state and talking to people too, is hearing all the individual community stories and family stories that connected to her book.
I also think it's interesting, the idea of the antidote and people sharing a memory that they will then come back and retrieve. And it's so much human nature, the things that people don't want to remember and the ways in which they hide that. And very often people who've gone through floods and horrible kinds of natural disasters don't want to talk about them. So, I kept thinking as I was reading through this that, as a child, I didn't know enough to ask, but my grandparents would not have offered any information about this. And so there may be stories that people are learning through this novel that impacted their family that no one has ever spoken about.
I might add in here too, Tessa, you talked about how the Wizard of Oz is maybe something that we are all surprised that they're not, a lot of the reviewers aren't talking about, but I think it's exactly what was just mentioned here. Is there's some silences in history that we don't talk about for a long period of time, and that's what historians do and good researchers do, is they try to uncover all of those histories and those stories that need to come through that teach us something in the present. So this book, I really think, it's timely for the hard times and the hardships that people faced 100 years ago plus, can be relatable. And one of my big mottos that I have is, if we don't understand the past, we don't know where we are in the present, we don't know where we're going in the future. And I truly believe The Antidote's one of those classics that's going to be something that people refer back to, about what that life experience was like for certain groups of people during the Dust Bowl.
Yeah, the parts of history we want to forget or no one will talk about, like the mother baby home. And I just think about, all the secrets that come to light, even just in the last several years with the DNA kits you can do, and how that's changed people's families from things, that was never talked about or was hidden away from their family history, and now has to be brought up into the open, and how Karen deals with all of those really touchy subjects that people would not have talked about in their families and would have been, swept under the rug, is, I think, one of the excellent parts of this book as well. Like you mentioned, bringing up those, what was the phrase you used? Hidden history.
Silence.
Or
the silences in history.
Yes. So that's one of the great things about this book as well. Well, any other comments or questions, Krista, as we get close to?
Yeah, we're almost top of the hour. If anybody does have anything else you want to share or anything you want to ask about, definitely type in the question section there. I will send you the info that Dominic is supposed to leave here, and I assume we'll probably get some links up onto the website to connect other people with the Homestead National Park.
We will. So we'll continue to add things to this page, this Get Involved page, throughout the year of 2026 as different programming emerges.
So let you know that if
Yeah.
you're doing something at your library, you will post it.
We'll post it to news and events if it's your personal library's programming. If you're a historian and you want to connect with us and you've got programming available, we would love to get that linked here under maybe book a speaker or programming. And then under promote your event, if you're hosting a book club, if you're having a speaker presentation, if you just want to let people know about the One Book, One Nebraska program and that it's happening across our state, we've got, like I said, social media graphics and an 11x8 or an 11x17 poster available with room for you to add your programming or book club information onto it. So those are all available.
You have bookmarks there in front of you. that you can
And
hold up to the.
We have bookmarks that you can request. They come with every book kit. So if you already have a book kit reserved, we send you bookmarks with it. But if you would just like some bookmarks for your librarian can contact us and get some for your school or public library or academic library. And we'll mail those out to you. We also have sticker seals. If you have a One Book, One Nebraska book in your library and you'd like to get a One Book sticker, shoot us an email and we'll mail that out to you.
And that's a generic sticker that go any of the ones?
No,
Or is it
they're
specific?
year specific.
Oh,
So
they're
they
year
say,
specific,
this
okay.
one says 2026.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
We don't have every year still available, but we do have several years available. So if you have an old One Book, One Nebraska selection and you want a sticker for that year, ask us, and we might still have it and be able to send it to you. We also might not, but it's out there for you. And yeah,
Question, since it's in the beginning, and it was Christy, I'm not sure if she was here, but you
Yeah.
know, it was mentioned that Karen Russell spoke about the book and had a book signing.
yes.
Can you repeat how you contacted her for the program? Or do we have info about how people can
So
contact
we're
her?
still working with Karen. She had a very busy winter break. She moved, she started a new job. So we're just getting into talks about possible programming and how libraries and book groups could connect with her to do some programming. We don't know if that would be an all virtual program. We haven't fleshed those details out yet. So we are still kind of in that process. We're hopeful that eventually we'll be able to add that to this Get Involved page. But I know if you wanted to do it right this second, you would get in contact with her through her publisher.
Right, and we do link to her, you said we link to her own author page, her personal website.
So if you go to
So probably right now
the
that
author
would be,
page
yeah.
and KarenRussell.com, there should be a contact box. I'm sure you could get involved with her and just learn more about the other books she's written as well as the Antidote and her work just in general.
So right now, reach out to her directly if you want to, or just wait a bit and we will have some more information
Hopefully we'll
about
have-
things that are being done.
Yeah.
Specifically through the One Book,
One Book,
One
One
Nebraska
Nebraska program.
Center for the Book Program.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to reach out yourself too. You don't have to wait for
It's
us
true.
to get stuff to
And-
do it.
Even just working with her over email, Karen Russell is a delight. So I can say that. And Broc knows her much better. But yeah.
And I, excuse me, I can add to that she was truly touched and delighted to hear that this book is our One Book, One Nebraska. She feels very honored by the fact that we've chosen this book.
Thank you.
So yeah, I know we're almost out of time.
Yeah. Mhm.
Broc, do you have any final words before we hand it over to Krista?
You know, I do want to make sure I do a shout out to the Kathleen Lute Public Library in Ogallala for letting me come do this in one of their conference rooms. So I'm always going to take advantage of the libraries across the state and the great things that they do for Nebraskans. So
We always
Yeah.
support that.
Yes, absolutely.
Well said, Broc.
Becky, any final words?
No, it's a fascinating book, and I think it's a wonderful book to read with other people, because I think the dialogue that goes on between readers is very valuable.
Mhm.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right,
All
Krista.
right, yeah. We got this over here. All right, so thank you, everyone. Let's see if we can either just type in. All right, so yeah, I think that will wrap us up for today. I'm just going to. Boom. There we go, yes. If you use whatever is your search engine of choice, you can find our NCompass Live page, our main page, or our archive page. Yeah, this mouse is good. Has a mind of its own. Okay. As I said, the show is recording as we are here now, and it will be available on our page by the end of the day tomorrow at the very latest, as long as GoToWebinar and YouTube cooperate with me. But first I want to say, yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Broc, Christy, who may or may not be actually there. Thanks for being here. And Becky and Tessa. We always do like to bring, do one book on Nebraska every year, and I'm glad we get it out as early in the year as possible to get people on board with it. The recording for this will also eventually be on the One Book page, right? Okay, so you'll be able to access it through there or through our NCompass Live archives. That's all I wanted to mention too. So these are our upcoming shows, but here's where our archives are. There's a link right underneath there. The most recent one is always at the top of the page. This one will be there. We'll have a link to the show recording in our YouTube account, the Library Commission's YouTube, and the slides, slide presentation. Everyone who attended today's show and registered for today's show will get an email from me letting you know that it's ready. We also push it out onto our social media. We have a Facebook page for NCompass Live, which I have linked here. There we go. I don't know how it'll come up on here if no one's logged in yet. Anyway, where you can see we promote, here's a reminder to log into today's show, and we promote about next week's show that's coming up and when recordings are available. All right. So if you do like to use Facebook, give us a like over there. We use the hashtag, a little abbreviation of the show name, NCompLive. We also post on the commission's pages, their Facebook and Instagram as well. In our show archives, we do have a search feature if you do want to search and see if you've done anything, a show on any topic you may be interested in. You can do the most recent 12 months real current info or just search the full show archives. And I'm not going to scroll all the way down because if you see this is a giant list. This is our full show archives going back to when NCompass Live first premiered in January 2009. So that makes this 18. I have it written down upstairs. We've been doing the show for a long time. And all of our shows are here. Just pay attention when you're watching any of the older recordings to the original broadcast date. They all have a date on them so you know when the show first happened. Some of the shows will be fine to watch, good, still useful information. All the sessions about one book would probably be good to watch because the books are what they are. But some things may become old and outdated. Resources may no longer exist or be totally different. Links are going to be broken. People are going to work at different places when they presented for us. But this is something libraries do. We keep things for historical purposes. And as long as we have a place to host all of them, which we will keep doing that. Right now, that is the Library Commission's YouTube channel. So take a look at any of our old shows if you want to. This is our upcoming shows. So we've got January, February booked out. So keep an eye on this for more shows. Next week, it is the last Wednesday of the month. So that means it is Pretty Sweet Tech Day. Every month, the last Wednesday, Amanda Sweet, who's our technology innovation librarian, she comes on the show and talks about anything techie related. We sometimes have other shows during other times of the month that are also tech, but you always depend on almost every last Wednesday of the month. It'll be Amanda. And next week, she's going to talk about how to build a virtual makerspace. Lots of libraries have makerspaces now, they'll kind of maker equipment and things. 3D printers, embroidery machines, button makers, giant laser cutters and things. But you can do that a virtual version as well. So if you're interested in that, please do register for next week's show or any of our other shows that we have coming up. All right, so thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for joining us in NCompass Live, and hopefully we'll see you all on a future episode. Bye-bye.